you know, this
So we'll tell
webinar
you as we
on
go live.
circular economic utilization of plastic waste in India and the Asian region. It is actually a
Hello.
pre-event for the upcoming UNCRD 11th Regional 3R and Circular Economy Forum.
Kulwant sir.
Yes, can you
So
hear me?
I'm so sorry, sir. We haven't started the webinar yet. We'll just go live and then you can start.
Okay, then please make the
I'll
announcement.
give you a go ahead and then we can start.
Okay, all right. Okay, then please. I thought it was time, isn't it? We are already 3 minutes behind. Welcome, Roshan.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Very nice.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Prashant.
Hello.
Hi, Roshan. Hi. How are you? Long time.
Doing good.
So we are just starting in next 1 or 2 minutes. I think my team is going to make the announcement.
So we can go ahead with the webinar.
Okay, thank you so much indeed. Actually, my colleagues from All India Institute of Local Self-Government are always a very big support. Thank you so much. This webinar, as I said, on the circular economic utilization of plastic waste in India and the Asian region. This is a pre-event for the upcoming United Nations Center for Regional Development's 11th Regional 3R and Circular Economy Forum, which will be held in Moscow in March 2022. Well, you know, as is very well known, plastic waste is a very major challenge due to its increasing production rate and unavailability of appropriate methods of treatment, management, and disposal. According to the Central Pollution Control Board of India, in 2018-19, as much as 3.3 million metric tons of plastic waste was generated in India, which is approximately 9,200 tons per day. We are well aware that use of plastic waste in the construction of roads projects, the environmental from adverse impact of waste plastic. In 2016, our Honorable Minister for Road Transport had announced the usage of plastic waste in road construction because of its major economic utility. Since then, plastic waste has been used in constructing roads in 11 states in India. The Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has issued guidelines for mandatory use of waste plastic in periodic renewal of national highways also. Plastic waste actually, plastic itself is a very interesting material. It's a, that got, it was in a way, I would say that its use was invented last century, but it is today posing a lot of problems also. It's a wonderful material, but at the same time, it has its own challenges. So today's webinar basically is focusing mainly on its economic utilization, how, as a matter of fact, plastic waste is getting recycled and things like that. We have a very distinguished panel of experts in this regard, and we have two speakers coming from a city of Hyderabad. We have, I would say, two international speakers coming from one side, Japan, and other side, Australia. And we have other experts as well. I would like to make a beginning with Dr. Sushma Pradeshi. She's a senior project associate in one of our research organization called Niri Nagpur. I would like to invite Dr. Sushma to present, and I would appreciate if we can really limit ourselves to about 12 minutes, because with 7 speakers, we have limited time and we still would like to have about half an hour for either panel discussion or questions and answers. Dr. Sushma, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. I'm just sharing my screen.
Kindly do that.
Is it visible?
Yes, very much so. Yes.
Okay. Very good morning to all. My name is Dr. Sushma Pardesi. I'm a researcher from National Environmental Engineering Research Institute, CSIR, Niri, Nagpur. First of all, I would like to thank organizer of this webinar for giving me this opportunity to speak, especially to Singh sir. Thank you. Today, my talk will be focused on plastic waste recycling options and Indian perspective. So this is the agenda of talk: a short story of plastic, followed by plastic waste generation. What is the need for circular economy of plastic? What are the plastic waste recycling options in India? Followed by challenges and opportunities. So we all know that the plastics are important and integral part of global economy due to their versatile properties. From recycling point of view, if we classify these plastic things, so thermoplastics are more recyclable than thermosets, and homogeneous plastics such as polyethylenes are more recyclable than the heterogeneous one, for example, PVC. We often see a resin identification code on the plastic products, 3 arrows followed each other, but it has nothing to do with the recyclability of polymer, although PET is the most recyclable plastic in the world. If we talk about plastic consumption in India, packaging industry is utilizing most of the plastic because nowadays lifestyle has increased and there is increase in the FMCG items. So plastic in packaging industry is utilizing a large amount of plastic, followed by other sectors like infrastructure, agriculture, medical. According to Plast India Foundation, in 2018-19, if we see sector-wise plastic consumption, so there is a total utilization of 15.4 million metric tons of plastic, and most of the percentage of plastic was utilized by household and flexible and rigid packaging sector. According to Plast India Foundation, there is wide consumption of thermoplastic and thermosets in India. We can say that plastic exhibits many magnificent properties, as can be seen from this slide. And just imagine how could we tackle this COVID pandemic without these plastic-made personal protection equipments. So these commodity and engineered plastic, they are making our life easier. But this is another phase of plastic, which is due to mismanagement of post-consumer use. These pictures are very scary. Lots of pollution, harm to ecosystem, biodiversity, emissions, leaching, littering, microplastic pollution. The list is very long. So after looking at these two slides, the question may arise in our mind: we should consider plastic as a savior or as a polluter. According to CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board statistic, their latest report of 1920, there is total plastic waste generation is 3.4 million tons per annum, and Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, West Bengal, and Karnataka are the major contributor to this. So now we can say that there is urgent need of circular economy, keeping all the plastic in use and keeping them out of environment, so that we can maximize plastic waste utilization and minimize the generation of plastic waste. So in this regard, source reduction is the most important. followed by its reuse. And recycling option is very much important, which can mitigate the consequences of plastic waste and its use. Since out of total plastic waste generated, around 90%, 94% of plastic waste comprises of thermoplastic content, which is recyclable, and remaining 6% of thermosets, they are also recyclable to certain extent. The good news for us is that India is recycling a lot. I'm saying this fact on the basis of various reports published by the groups who are working in the plastic sector, and as well as my experience to visit to various plastics industry around the India. And most of the plastic waste management is handled by informal sector in India. And we say word informal sector, but in personal experience, they are very channelized and they are very important aspect in the plastic waste management. If we talk about various recycling options which is happening in India, there are three major options for plastic waste recycling. 94% of plastic waste is being handled by mechanical recycling. Approximately 1 to 0.8% is by chemical recycling, and remaining 5% is handled by either alternate use or quaternary recycling or waste to energy recovery. As I said that most of the plastic from plastic waste is recyclable, and also some this type 7 category is also recyclable in India up to certain extent. Where is the problem now? Problem is with the multi-layer packaging. In India, we have wide use of small sachet like shampoo and vapors, these chips, that vapors thing, and Tetra Packs. So these things, they are low in quantity and low in volume. So these are non-recyclable. And since they have a low recycling value, so it is not picked up by rack pickers. So they stay littered in the environment, and they have enormous potential for this microplastic pollution and all. So this is the problematic area, MLPs. Now, one by one, I will talk about some recycling options of this plastic waste management. So first is mechanical recycling. Mechanical recycling is very important tool, and it converts plastic waste into secondary raw material or products without significantly changing its chemical structure. Primary or closed loop recycling is conversion of product into another product, like PET bottle to PET bottle. But due to some technical aspect and contaminated waste, this practice is not very common in India. We all depend on secondary or open loop recycling, in which there are various steps as can be seen in the flow chart. So after following this unit operation, plastic waste is converted into pallets, and these pallets are used for making recycled product. Mechanical recycling not only just conserve the natural resources and energy that is required to produce virgin plastic, but also it delays the end of life of any plastic thing. Our team visited various plastic industry across the India, and we have observed some important issue which needs to be addressed. The first thing is that the plastic waste is very contaminated. So it needs rigorous washing. And then of course, there are associated issues of disposal of sludge, wastewater. These type of plastic industry who needs rigorous washing, they require larger area to set up. So some of the recyclers, what they are doing nowadays, they are preferring industrial waste. They are taking plastic waste from virgin plastic industry and they are recycling it. But this is not going to solve the problem of plastic waste from municipal solid waste. Also, other problem with mechanical recycling is that we cannot recycle these products again and again, n number of times. There is certain limit. After that, it loses its properties like mechanical strength and other property, and it becomes brittle. The plastic product which we use in our daily life, we don't know. There is no labeling or some eco mark is there so that we can know whether it is virgin or whether it is recycled, first time recycled, second time, third time. So we cannot channelize this virgin and recycled plastic waste, especially recycled products. So these are some issues we found during our visits. Other option is chemical recycling. It is also known as tertiary recycling. Here, plastic waste is converted into oil and gas, which can be used as a substitute of petroleum products, especially in industrial application. If we think that it is tertiary recycling or feedstock recycling, it is not recycling in real sense because product is getting lost and it is converted into oil and gas. Although it is not a real recycling, but still it is useful because the MLPs or other contaminated plastic waste which cannot be recycled through mechanical recycling can be utilized here. You can find n number of literature on these options, lab scale utilization of plastic waste into fuel, but there is very means this plastic chemical recycling is very uncommon in India. Why? Because in lab scale, plastic behaves differently. It may show good results of conversion, but in large this plant and in bulk quantity, plastic behaves differently. So there is means we can say that there is no successful implementation on the industrial scale of various technologies. So also it requires too many it requires large input from economic point of view. That's why this option is not relevant in India. Then there are other options like alternate use. As Singh sir told earlier, IRC, Indian Road Congress, they are mandated use of 5% plastic waste along with the bitumen for construction of plastic roads. This is very good utilization of plastic, and it has several advantages like resistance and deformation, and road of life will be, of course, it is going to increase. But before promoting this technology, we should be well aware of its long-term consequences. Right now, no one knows what is going to happen to this road after 15-20 years. Is there some microplastic leaching or other environmental impacts associated with this? So before promoting this technology, we should conduct some studies on the long-term effect of this plastic. Quaternary recycling, which is not again recycling, it is simple burning and energy recovery in either waste to energy plants, incinerators, or cement kilns. In India, cement industry is having very high capacity and they can utilize this plastic waste as an alternative of coal. So this is of course a good option for a plastic waste disposal, but it should perform. It should be performed in pollution control monitoring. Otherwise, the land-based pollution will convert into air pollution. So here also there are some issues. As I told you that the plastic waste is very contaminated. So it reaches with some other components of municipal solid waste in the cement industry. And if there is reduction in calorific value, the cement industry, they just reject it. And after rejection, that plastic waste fraction has no other alternative than going to the landfill, which is not, which should not happen at all. Landfill must be the last, or means it should not be an option for plastic waste. So these are the options for plastic waste management in India. We should promote recycling. Why? Because it has very positive impacts of resource conservation, reduced energy consumption, reduced pollution, reduced carbon footprint, and also it has some economic impacts of job creation. If you see these reports by Plast India and other thing, we can see that recycling industry is giving so many jobs to people, especially this informal sector. And of course, there is community building. Like today, we have united for a brainstorming session on plastic waste. So this plastic recycling and plastic waste management is giving us opportunity to connect the various stakeholders together. As I told you earlier, that this supply of good quality of feedstock is very important. It will reduce the consumption of energy and water. So the consumer should taught to respect their plastic waste. It will promote source segregation. So this can be done by some awareness and knowledge creation session. So if we provide clean feedstock to recycling industry, of course, the price of recycled product will be going to reduce. And government and other agencies should also create an infrastructure and capacity building for recycling technologies. The plastic, which cannot be recycled, for such fractions, there is a need for further research and development so that there should be a sustainable use of each fraction of plastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sushma. That was really excellent. Very
Sorry, shall I stop sharing?
Yes. I'm saying thank you so much for excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Of, the whole story of plastics, for that matter, about its consumption, and then also the situation, mismanagement of plastics, but at the same time, what's happening. You mentioned about the, chemical processes, not very, I would say that popular in India, but in Netherlands, in Rotterdam, 3 years ago, they have set up a very major plant for converting the, plastic waste into chemicals.
Yes.
Rare chemicals, I would put it that way. There have also been exports of plastics to China for several years, particularly coming from Australia, where they were washing and then sending it, but now they have stopped it. So there is a kind of international trade also in the plastic waste itself for sort of, reproducing, and after treating it. So it's very interesting that the way that you have made a presentation in a small way, basically. And we do look forward for some response. Our colleagues have also put up a poll also for the participants, and we will be able to see the results and show them later on, perhaps, I think. Right? There were some questions which were there.
Yes.
It was not for the panelists. They were mainly meant for the participants, and I think we'll show some results of that poll later on. I now avail this opportunity inviting Dr. Edward Roshan Miranda, basically that for his presentation. Before he joined, I did mention that, it's a team of several PhD doctors from coming from USA and setting up, waste management, kind of opportunities in the city of Hyderabad. I would say that they have really transformed, the city and its waste management. And I would like to listen the story from Dr. Roshan in that regard. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. You're very, very kind with your introduction. Happy to be talking here. Appreciate you inviting us here. Today, what I'm going to talk about is, I am a founder of two startups. One is Waste Ventures India, and another one is Bintix Waste Research Private Limited. Both of them work in the waste management sector, whereas first one works with bulk producers of waste, and the second waste management company, which is Bintix, works with individual producers. individual households. At the moment, the presentation I have is mostly for Waste Ventures India, and I'm happy to talk about Bintix with anybody who's interested, maybe during question and answer or later. I'll share my screen and talk to you about our journey at Waste Ventures India, which works mostly with bulk producers of waste and also with waste pickers. Give me a second.
Yes, that's fine. Your screen is visible.
Give me a second. I think it's the wrong window. Okay, once my screen is visible, I'll get going. Waste is an impending problem, and I think Dr. Sushma spoke, very well about the problems that waste creates, and specifically the plastic waste, which is a non-biodegradable component of the waste that we have. And that is causing much larger issues and so on. So I think this was very well elaborated. The burning of plastic and how it can be an issue, very well elaborated by Dr. Sushma. So I'm not going to delve deeper into this problem as to why it is a problem. We all know that it's a huge problem and we need to address it. And I think one of the ways that Waste Ventures works today with multiple bulk producers of India across 3 cities today now, which is Hyderabad, Chennai, and Delhi, is by providing one-point solution to all the waste types that is produced by these bulk producers. When I say bulk producers, I mean to say it could be waste pickers, it could even be societies or communities which are producing more than 10 kgs of waste, or corporate clients. It could even be schools or function halls and so on. Right? So whoever is producing more than 10 kgs of waste per day. They form almost 40 to 50% of the total waste produced in metros and pose a significant problem. Now, working with them addresses almost 40 to 50% of the city's waste, if they were all to be compliant and if we were to be able to work with them. That reduces cities' problems by 50% already, but also reduces the problems associated with waste. The way to make that work for us is to provide a digital platform, make it very transparent, professional solutions, reports which can help you get sustainability, which can help you in green building certifications, again cost effective at the same time, and so on. So those are all the things that we think about when we want to provide solutions to these bulk producers. Now we have multiple programs where we starting from collecting of the waste to managing of the waste remotely or on site, making sure everything gets recycled. We also provide support to our clients in their sustainability efforts, maybe in terms of their certifications, maybe in terms of their pledges that they want to do, in terms of their EPR and so on. So we provide multiple supports. Now, one of the success stories I want to kind of start talking about is that a corporate client in India who is a big search engine client. This is Google. So they, we help them manage almost increase the recycling efforts or other collection efforts by 50%, almost 50%. Help us avert their carbon dioxide by almost 10,000 kilograms per month. Right? That is a huge number. One of the ways we made that work is we provided them a solution where 95% of their waste got taken care of. This includes much of the plastic that we collect from them. Now, when we talk about plastic that is collected from most of these places, like Dr. Sushma mentioned, this includes two segments mostly. I'm not talking about thermoset plastics here. I'm talking about mostly thermoplastics, which form 95% of the plastics, like Dr. Sushma mentioned. In this plastic segment, almost half of the plastic is rigid plastic, which is all your shampoo bottles, PET bottles, or for that matter, anything that has a shape. And remaining 50%, close to 50% of that is flexible plastics, which is your carry bags, chips packets, noodle packets, and biscuit packets, and chocolate wrappers, and so on. They form the biggest nuisance that we can think about in India and anywhere else in the world, because they're not recyclable very easily. A very small percentage of them are recyclable, and we need to make sure that we collect them and we make sure that we find a green endpoint to them. Now, when it comes to collection of these waste, it's not straightforward, right? Because they're not recycled today for a reason, because they're not easily recyclable. Either their thickness is not good enough for washing the plastic, so hence they kind of render much of the plastic not recyclable. But the biggest problem is they have multi-layers, PET mixed with LDPE. HDP mixed with PP and so on, right? So now when you think about such multi-layers, they cannot be recycled in one machine, making it very difficult. So one of the solutions that exists today for this is EPR, right? Extended Producer Responsibility, through which a regulation exists today that if a company or an organization is producing so much plastic to package its products and put it in the market, they have to pull back that much amount of plastics from the market. That's called Extended Producer Responsibility, right? And we work with these brands to make sure that we pull back that plastic. In our effort to do that, we work with around 6,000 waste pickers across Hyderabad. We have a network of 6,000 waste pickers. We pay them on a per kg basis, almost 5 rupees per kg, not almost, actually 5 rupees per kg, for them to pick that plastic, collect it, and then give it to us. And then we, in turn, send it to cement kilns. Now, one of the biggest problems we have is also the collection part of this plastic. Right? They're strewn around because they don't have any value. Cement kilns who uses as a waste, who uses a source of energy, do not pay us anything. They in fact charge us for every truck that we send there. Hence, leaving us at the mercy of only EPR or such kind of innovative solutions. The another solution there is plastic credits platform. You might all know that there is a plastic credits started already across the world. There are multiple companies who are working in there, so we can actually use the credits. That means we can collect a kilogram of plastic and then send it for recycling or for co-processing, and collect the credits coming from there and then sell it in the international market. Right? Very similar to carbon credit. That solution also exists. So that is another way to kind of make this work. Right? Whenever we work with plastic credit platforms, or when we work with clients who want to have a social impact, right? Who want to kind of work with waste pickers, it makes it easy for us to work with them because they pay us a little more higher than what the regular EPR clients do. And that helps us, pay that additional 5 rupees to waste pickers so that their life is impacted. They get around 220% more income. So this way, we are working with waste pickers quite a bit, either through EPR or either through plastic credits platform to make that work. Unfortunately, we are not working with anybody in the plastic roads. Using plastic in roads. Telangana is yet to adopt it in a larger scale, although to smaller level of adoption is happening already. We are yet to kind of sell our plastics to roads projects yet. That's another thing, like Dr. Singh mentioned, we need, 11 states have been mandated, we need all the states to adopt it really well and then make that happen, but also it comes with its own problems. But, when I think about plastic, I'm staying on the slide to kind of deliberate on the solutions we have. Because, rigid plastics are taken care of. They can be recycled. There are enough of recyclables in India, and, there's plenty of demand for the plastic. The problem is the flexible plastic. If you were to deliberate on what other solutions exist, right? I think we're looking at, there's some recyclers or other, upcyclers who produce boards from, these multi-layer plastic or flexible plastics. That's a good solution that is coming up, but again, it has its own limitations. They don't accept metallized plastics like chips packets and so on. They also ask us to segregate plastic further, and economics doesn't work out all the time. So that's another issue. We need to kind of think about, is the existing solutions sufficient to kind of handle the flexible plastics? One is, of course, co-processing and roads, but we need more. We need more of innovators who are on this talk today to come up with more and more solutions, which which helps people like us who are collecting plastics in bulk to kind of channel it in right directions. We also have certain ULBs we are working with. We are working with 7 ULBs across Hyderabad now, where we are converting those ULBs into zero waste to landfill ULBs. We manage all their organic waste as well as their recyclable waste, including low value plastic and so on. Those are other projects we are taking care. We are managing. So those are all the solutions we have to manage waste in and around Hyderabad as well as in Chennai and Delhi. Right. That's about our what we do with plastics, which is 50% of that which can be recycled gets recycled. Every kg of that gets recycled. Remaining 50% which doesn't get recycled, we send it for co-processing or for making boards from it and so on. Now coming to the cities that we are not present in, which is tier 2 and tier 3 cities, they are a big challenge. Bintix, which is the other startup that we are working with, is a pioneer in Lucknow. We are the first ones to start any waste management in Lucknow. We do that project there. We collect a lot of waste there going in. But tier 2 and tier 3 cities remain a huge problem because there is no big waste picker population who are the champions who make waste management work, right? Or at least let cities survive without a huge mountain of waste. So that doesn't exist. So we need to come up with a lot of innovative solutions. Solutions in plastic crates could be one. Bintix could be another solution, which produces a lot of data from waste. That's another solution. But yes, we need a lot more innovative thinking happening there. And then the major, I think, front will be villages, where we pretty much have no hope but to rely on a governmental effort to make that work. So that's about what we do, and my take on plastic waste. And I'll just stop there and then see if you have any questions later or now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roshan. I think it was very fascinating. I think things are happening, as you mentioned, almost 47% increase in recycling of plastic waste. Actually, in a way, in our Indian situation, if we are recycling more and more, we do understand there are challenges for the flexible plastic, managing that. There is a need, as a matter of fact, as I feel, that we can certainly use more and more plastic waste for roads purposes, although during the last 4 or 5 years, the progress has been rather slow despite the guidelines. And I would say that a big push by the minister himself. There is a political will, no doubt, at the same time, but I think there is a need for some kind of either, how should I say, training or awareness or some technical challenges, if at all they are there. Perhaps I think they are very, very important. But yes, there is an economics, particularly for the hard plastics, but there is lesser, economy so far as the flexible plastics are concerned. But flexible plastics are equally important as a material, but waste is a problem. So we have to find a solution for that. Yeah. So thank you so much. I think we'll certainly continue. We have another very distinguished speaker from Hyderabad, your colleague, Dr. Prashant Lingam, presently with the UNDP. He's also he was working in his own organization for about 15 long years, and then moved on to the UN system. Now trying to implement, projects on plastic waste management, and UNDP itself is also, along with the UNEP and perhaps I think other organizations, are trying to, as a matter of fact, push the agenda for plastic waste management. So I'd like to invite Dr. Prashant Lingam, who has earned so many laurels, I would put it this way. He has a very long bio. I'll not like to read it out, but I would say that, his presentation itself is a kind of, so he is going to make a presentation basically on the UNDP projects themselves, which are actually on the plastic waste management.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Singh, and my colleague Roshan and Dr. Sushma and others panelists. So do you want me to share, or the organization, they will be sharing the presentation, or should I share?
You would like to share it? You do that.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll just share it. So I'll just restrict, I'll not go deeper into plastics and all, because on the assumption that Roshan has spoken, Dr. Sushma is by and large the same thing. So I would like to just share what exactly is UNDP doing in this particular front. So I'll just take note of the time. Would like to finish as fast as I can. So, okay, so this is a project which started in 2018. So we are in phase 1. It is a 6-year project. Phase 1 ends at 2024 June. So we are almost in the 4th year today, 3+ years. So it's a multi-donor project, Coca-Cola being the largest donor. So Coca-Cola Foundation, Mahua, HDFC and all. Yesterday, yesterday itself, we have signed another MOU with Mahua. Now, currently, we are in 22 states and 35 ULBs. So, and now the plan for next year, next calendar is to spread the activity to another 75 cities, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So now we have Niti Aayog as a partner. So now the focus will be to ensure the project drives as per the requirements of the government. So that will be the focus. That has been the focus too. So this is a broader one. So I'll just share for the information of the panelists how the project is basically executed. So that first is a donor, and in between in UNDP, and we operate in ULBs. So there at the ULB level, we appoint an implementing partner. It's a local NGO. So we scout for most effective local NGOs, and I'll take next step, where entire funding is provided by the UN system, including CAPEX and OPEX, and it is ensured that the physical infrastructure is established in the ULB campus. So it can be a transfer station, it can be their major dumping ground of the city. That is where the investment is provided. And the whole agenda is to ensure we are able to work in tandem with the ULB, not away from them, taking their requirements into the consideration, because ULB knows the best. So it is to ensure we work with them. And as usual, as you know, these are the four major pillars of the project. Because by the time we exit in 24, the whole agenda is to ensure it's a sustainable center. And we call our centers as Swachhata Kendra. It is to ensure the local NGO whom we handhold for a period of 6 years. After that, he develops a model and make his the entire center sustainable. Of course, phase 3 is about working with waste pickers, whom we call Swachh Sathis. The fourth pillar is about traceability. So this is the broad, you know, we are anyway more than our targets. On an average today, we process around say 50,000 metric tons annually. So whereas the first target was 91 for the whole 6 years, but we are far more away. Safai Sathis, yes, it's second. So I will share the presentations also to the panelists if somebody wants to, you know, go through in detail. I'll share this also. And this year, especially 22, the focus is MLP. So as we all understand, that is the toughest one. So this time it is about ensuring we are able to address MLP also. So this is how our broad center looks like. I will share images also. So it is about ensuring entire waste is coming to the UNDP center. Even waste pickers or ash pickers or Safai Sathis are also able to sell their waste at the UNDP center. And we give a better price than the market. So we connect to you know, bulk waste generators, kabadiwalas, and everybody in the process. So this is the so I'll leave the slide for a minute so that you can read. It is just a flow. It is only a flow, though it might look a little confusing, but it's only a flow of waste, that's all. So yes, waste picker integration is the most important aspect of the project. So it is to ensure they are streamlined, and we also ensure that the payments are sent to them through bank. It's easier said than done. We all know it's not very easy, but we try. So the partner is you know, trained well to ensure these aspects are fulfilled. So this is how we implement. So if you know that, if you notice the top, it is the governments and the donors. And we have CSR also in Coca-Cola Foundation. So in between is UNDP. We approach the ULB, and then we appoint a city implementation partner. It can be local NGO. Then we set up a center, and we provide all the machineries which are required to run the center. All the machinery, staff salaries, literally all expenses involved in the whole process of collection and processing is taken care by the project. So this is a broad how it looks like. What are the machines which are made available at the center? It's a very basic machinery. We can just go through these are broad machines, and the covered area or the shed we can call, we look at around 5,000 square feet. So we request the ULB to provide us 5,000 square feet of a space where we can establish the center with a processing capacity as low as 3 to 5, as high as 10 to 20 also. So now with Mahua coming into the picture, the focus would be to get into tier 2, tier 3. So this is an image of how one of our centers look like. It's what we call Swachhata Kendra. This is inside a ULB campus. So these are the monitoring tools to ensure every kilo which is entering the Swachhata Kendra is documented and then it's traced, because it has to be submitted to, along with the donor, it has to go to CPCB also. So traceability, recording, everything is taken care. So we have a very massive team which works exclusively on this particular aspects. So yes, as we all know, it's about circularity. So at the end, from the center, we ensure it goes towards circularity. Yes, co-processing is also there, of course. But we try to the best that, we are able to create enterprise models after, waste enters our center and goes from there. So that also we try. IEC, yes, it's an important aspect. As like any plastic waste or any waste activity, the first step has to be IEC. So we're all possible, the entire team, we are almost a 50-member team with all donors put together. We have 50-member team spread across 25 plus states across the country. So yeah, so the team ensures this activity is continuous. Yep, thanks. I'm exactly on my 11th minute. So I'll stop the presentation. Yes, so around 10-15 days back, we had a launch of a handbook with Niti Aayog. So the best practices in waste management. So the first workshop was there in Mumbai, and the second workshop is going to be there in Tirupati on the 24th. So in partnership with Niti. So we'll share the handbook and all the details also. Anybody interested or to know anything about the project, we'll be more than happy to share. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant. That's very, very nice. I think the focus on plastic waste certainly is increasing. That's very, very encouraging. You are going to take, you said, type 2, type 3 cities also now will be covered under that new.
Yes. So now the whole focus, Dr. Singh, is about to strengthen ULBs. That's the whole project designed in such a way that we strengthen ULBs and go to tier 2, tier 3 also now.
Okay. When you say strengthening ULBs means what? Are you only doing the training part of it or beyond that?
No, it is not training at all. It is in fact capacity building. In fact, even funding support also. It's like it can be literally anything, because for example, for in an enterprise model, it really doesn't work out for a social enterprise or an NGO or anybody to go to tier 2, tier 3. It's very difficult. Economics doesn't work out. So there also we want to operate now.
Well, that's really very good, very nice. We'll come back actually with some questions
Sure.
later on.
Definitely.
I avail this opportunity inviting Dr. Trish Hyde from Australia. Dr. Trish, as a matter of fact, is the director, co-founder, founder, I would say that, of what they call plasticity. She has been working, on the whole issue of plastics circular economy in the Asia region. And since our focus of this webinar goes beyond India, we will like to look forward to her presentation, mainly on how many of the Asian countries, or particularly cities in Asia, are trying to manage the plastic waste per se, and how it is really impacting, particularly the marine areas and like that, basically. So Trish, the floor is yours, basically. Thank
you very much.
for joining us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh. And let me share my screen.
Yes, your screen is there.
And presentation.
You have to go back to your slide number 1. This is
I know I'm not on the right slide, and it's at the end. Let's try that again. Got it. So thank you to everyone for letting me attend today. Yes, as Dr. Singh mentioned, I have an Asia Pacific remit in my role, and I work on education through plasticity with business, but I also am a startup founder in this space. I took to heart the term that's in the title of this forum, in the economics, and so I will actually focus significantly on the economics aspect for how we can actually change the way we think around plastic. I'm going to cover 3 parts: plastic in the Asian context, the problem that is actually it's an opportunity, and responsible PCR sourcing, and in particular a pilot that we did. Quite frankly, a lot of the conversation that happens throughout Asia is actually trying to take global north or Western concepts of recycling into countries that don't have recycling and applying that thinking to waste management. So it's really important to realise that the two are different. Once plastic enters waste stream, that's when it loses its value. And so our job has to be to get it before it becomes waste. We need to recycle before it gets to waste, because when you take plastic out of the muck, it isn't actually recycling, it's trying to get value back. And that gives only the opportunity to do downcycling or side cycling with that product. And really what we should be looking for is upcycling in value. Basically, the only similarity between the two scenarios is that there are global corporate commitments that have been made to use more recycled plastic content in packaging. And those commitments are there everywhere, every country, the multinationals are attempting to live up to them. But beyond that, it's significantly different. Those corporates are actually struggling to find quality recycled content to go into their packaging. They know that they can't get that post-consumer recycled content because that's what they've committed to use, not industrial, post-consumer recycled content. So that's what they're after. And whilst it's not discussed frequently, the aspects of modern slavery that are embedded in an informal worker-based supply chain are real, and multinationals are concerned about it. Now, to think that you would just abandon the entire informal worker sector and go for mechanised recycling is actually crazy, because there is an informal worker base that value the income that they can derive. So displacement of people is not an option. Here's a little brief history of what has actually been going on. Asia was the dumping ground for the scrap waste from plastic, which meant that the region was discouraged from actually having recycling infrastructure at all. But then the West started delivering very poor quality bales, less than 60% of actually recoverable material, which meant those countries that we were exporting to actually took in our waste. Then we had the situation where two worlds collided. China said no more to plastic waste. And at the same time, through the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, global brands announced that they would use more recycled content. Now, then came the follow-on bans across Asia and the Basel Convention finally putting that into the rule of law that Western countries couldn't dump plastic into emerging nations. But what that all meant was that by 2019, there was no trade and that meant there was no quality post-consumer recycled content in Asia, or very little. It also led to substitution, where virgin plastic was actually substituted because it was at a better price. The misconception that PET, because it is the most valuable and the most recycled, that it's always gathered, was dispelled in 2019 with a report from UNDP that showed that 46% of PET in ASEAN countries was not recovered at all. So that's the lost value. And finally, that means that we have a shortfall of 95 million tonnes per annum by the year 2025. Thinking of the economics, that's the number we should think about, because that's what we have as a market opportunity. So onto the problem as the opportunity. Quite frankly, we know that we have a supply problem. The supply chain is broken. That's, we've got poor infrastructure, the commingling that occurs, that, try to separate the pieces leaves you with poor quality. And the supply chain as it is dark and lengthy, which makes it inefficient, and it makes transparency very difficult. And those layers of middlemen actually don't add economic value that you would want. So brands actually want plastic. They want the PCR. They don't have the ability to get it in the quantity. They want to know that there is responsible sourcing, but they also don't want to pay a premium. Some are paying a premium at the moment for socially responsible plastic, but the majority don't want to pay that premium. And that's the first thing they say. So what we have is the ability to look at the economic, social, and environmental problem as an opportunity. So if we can get more money into the hands of collectors, that means that they are going to be better paid and we can better manage that part of the supply chain to remove modern slavery practices. If we can look at the environmental aspects of collecting it as a recyclable, not as a piece of plastic being taken out of waste, that means that source separation lifts the value of that plastic. And with fewer middlemen, you get far more efficiency. The third element is that all plastic is recyclable. It's the commercials that stop it. So if you get the quality by type, colour, condition, and location, then you have the ability for that to be drawn through by brand demand. I told you that I'm an entrepreneur, and as well as my other hats. So we actually have built a product called Plastex that fixes this broken supply chain by connecting collectors and the brand need with traceability and responsibility, eliminating layers of middlemen and delivering quality PCR at better economic rates. So I've put a QR code on this so that if you'd like to see how it works, by all means, please scan the code and take a look. But essentially, a little like the UNDP, we work with in-country partners. We don't pretend to know the dynamics on ground. But the in-country partner is not a waste collection organisation. They are specialists in human rights. We use technology to engage the collectors to tell them exactly what to collect and how much they will get paid for that. They drop off at a central hub, a place that we've set up and that can take that plastic, check for quality control, and then we do the last reverse mile logistics. All of that with the transparency of a dashboard. Oh, sorry, someone, the poll popped up and now my presentation won't move. There we go. So we are not a litter picking up program, and we collect specifically to order. That's the key. We deliver on demand, which means we can pay the collector more and we still can get a fair price. It's responsible and transparent because we use chain of custody, physical and digital evidence at all the touch points. And because we have fewer hands touching the plastic, we have cost efficiencies. So I said the third thing would be talking about the responsible partner. We actually did a pilot in Noida late last year, and that was with Solidaridad Network as a supporter, but Green Dream as our in-field partner. And we set out to test three things, just three. Could we engage informal workers with technology to collect and earn? Could we collect to the specific criteria we needed? And would the collectors, could we track from collector through to processor to know that we could do the traceability? We set up one hub with only 10 collectors. We were oversubscribed, but we only had funding to do our pilot with 10. We did the training and the technology. The key thing here is that 10 people collected almost 4 tonnes of plastic PET by particular specifications over a 3-month period. And we got, they actually, their averages were starkly different, but they all were incentivized because they earned more money. So we were able to prove the first hypothesis. Can we engage? And the answer is yes. The technology gave the incentive and the reinforcement of this and certainty that they would get money and how much they would get. It also meant that they knew exactly what to collect, how to collect it, and we got that quality plastic. So the technology worked. Could it be collected to clear specifications? Again, yes. And we tested this over 4 different variations. You know, just collect PET bottles, collect PET without label and lid, collect clean, clear PET, no label, no lid. And all of those differences were able to be, were reflected in the collections. This is a hub where you can see it gets bagged, tagged, and checked. There's a quality control. And it's not just the PET. I want to be really clear about that. It is actually for all plastics, and there is higher demand for LDPE and HDPE coming through for the PCR plastic. The third thing we tested and proved was that we can trace physically and digitally from collector through to the processor. The next steps for us are that we actually have our scale pilot to work through more of the economics aspect, because this is for-profit social enterprise. So we have a pilot underway that starts next year in Thailand to do that final part, and that is for LDPE. But we do have hopes to come back in 2023 to East Delhi. We have a project that's been scoped out to address Gazipur and to actually use those low valuable plastics that you're talking about, the sachets, the flexibles, multi-layered, and build that into smart planks, not dumb planks that become decking, but structural beams that can hold up a deck. So that's a piece of work in development. If you'd like to contact me or any of the Plastic Circle people or about plastics, please scan the code. In summary, Asia does have a plastic problem, but it is also an opportunity for entrepreneurs and people to think differently. Asian-centric solutions are needed, and in that way, Asia could leapfrog the global north in how it deals with plastic and creates circular economy. Infrastructure is not the solution. Economics is. What will drive the behaviour to get the plastic out of the environment back into something? So thank you very much. I'm Trish Hyde, and thank you for listening. Please scan and chat if you wish. Thank you, Dr. Singh.
Dr. Singh, you are mute. So kindly unmute it.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yes. I'm saying what Trish says, infrastructure is not the solution, but economics is.
Mm-hmm.
And plastics is a problem if you view it, but plastic is also an opportunity, you know. So it's all a question of how really we view it. Basically that. It was an excellent comparison between North and the Asia part, basically, when you really made a comparison. And we do look forward to your results for the 2022 projects in Gazipur and also in Thailand, for that matter. We look forward to on that account. So thank you very much. I think it was very, very interesting, very enlightening. I'll now like to invite my next speaker, Mr. Amit Jain. Amit has done outstanding work. She did a work on, state of plastics waste in Asia and the Pacific, which UNCRD has published, and it's available on their website. He has been working in the area of plastic waste management, a lot of research work that has been done. And he is going to really talk on, the circular economic utilization in India and the Asian region based on the research work that he has been doing for the last umpteen number of years, for that matter. Amit, the floor is yours. Kindly unmute yourself, actually. Amit ji.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you see the
Loud and
presentation?
clear. Loud
Can you
and clear.
see the presentation?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. So I will tell something about us, and then what I will do, I will take you through the situation in Asia Pacific. Then we will discuss something about consumption and the waste generation trends. What about Indian context? We have been listening to all the honorable speakers, distinguished speakers, and we saw different models. And finally, I would try to sum up or try to present a summary how we can close the loop and what are the challenges. So to start with, I work with IRG Systems South Asia Private Limited. It's a private company. We were established in 2001. We provide technical assistance in energy, environment, and natural resources, disaster management, reconstruction. And we are working a lot with other developmental agencies. Recently, we had completed a project with UNEP in India, and that project was countermeasure phase 1. This we did along with NPC. This is one of my favorite slides, which I generally show in all the presentation. Need not explain, we all know what are the sinks and what are the sources and what are the carriers. And we all know that it is polluting our waterways. It is also polluting our marine environment. India is not the exception. We have found evidences of microplastics in our rivers like Ganges, which we tried to analyze the samples sometime in March last year. And we tried to identify major hotspots in a geographical context of a city, where land-based sources are the major cause of leakages of plastic. When we talk about Asia Pacific, we know that material consumption has increased sharply over the past 4 decades, which account for 50% of the world consumption, while material productivity has not improved. At the same time, material use has also increased. When we talk about domestic material consumption, from 1970 till 2015, it has undergone a major, since we all have developing economies and Asia-centric solution is required. But at the same time, we are major consumers of material. Our energy consumption continues to rely on fossil fuels. And since we are the major consumers of water, and we also account for polluting our rivers at the same time. Yeah. Now, when we talk about trends in plastic consumption, we see that there is a correlation between plastic consumption and the GDP of different countries. And we can see that developed countries in Asia Pacific have the high plastic consumption. At the same time, they are having high incomes. We are importers of the fossil fuels, and there is a positive correlation between GDP growth rates and the plastic consumption in our region. And this trend continues. We cannot stop this trend. In a way, we are trying to imply that plastic will be there, not like that we can end the use of the plastics. When we talk about municipal solid waste generation, we see that municipal solid waste is showing increasing trend, and this trend will continue to grow. And we assume that by 2030, we will have more than 1 kg per capita per day of municipal solid waste generation. Plastic forms an integral part of the municipal solid waste. Why we are saying so? Plastic as a material, though we have the regulations in different countries, but plastic constitutes the major part, or constitutes an important part of municipal solid waste. When we come closer, a little closer, in South Asia, we see that we have the major population base, and we have increasing urbanization in South Asia. At the same time, our economic growth is showing a very increasing trend. So what are the key takeaways? We all know that geography, economic growth, demography, as well as growing purchasing power of the people in South Asian region is going to drive the plastic consumption in the long term. So unless we do something about it, we are going to face the problems. Have we done anything? Let's see. So what we are talking, we are only talking, we have to show the actions. There have been some efforts in changing the mindset of the stakeholders, be it our policy makers, be it our brand owners, be our population as such. We have to think from the linear value chain to a circular value chain. We all know that Ellen MacArthur Foundation has clearly stated that China and India are the two major countries in Asian region, which are going to show the, which are going to be the major consumers of the material. And if we continue to do that, we have an opportunity if we adopt the circular mindset. For India, we say that it is something of the order of $624 billion by 2050. When we look inward, we see that we have seen the statistics. Other presenters earlier has also given the same statistics. And we have this data, which has been released by the Central Pollution Control Board. And we all know which are the major states, which are how many recyclers are there, how many registered plastic units are there, how many unregistered plastic units are there, which means that we have informal sector, which is there, and to cover those informal sector under our EPR-based regulation is one of the major challenges. So when we try to formalize the chain, we see out here that in the dismantling and the recycling and the disposal section, plastic value chain, some inefficiencies or the major inefficiencies are there. When we try to close the loop, this particular section needs particular attention. What has been our response? We are having EPR-based plastic waste management rules 2016. We have energy efficiency related interventions. We have resource efficiency now. We have pollution control policies. We have, in fact, major regulations in our country have been amended, and we now have a uniform framework or the guidelines for EPR-based plastic waste management. Now, we see that there are different examples in the country. Our country is very diverse, and no one solution can be offered which can take care of the problem. While implementing the countermeasure, one project we saw that major leakages come from the informal sector. If they don't find the value of the plastics which they collect, they either throw it in the rivers or in the drainage system, which ultimately lands up in the rivers and ultimately into the sea. Now, when we talk about interventions, what type of interventions, where, in which geography, and what should be the mechanism is the major challenge that we face. We have seen different examples quoted by earlier speakers. We know that there cannot be any one solution. We have to bring the informal sector into the chain, and we have to streamline the plastic value chain. The major challenges are, we see that limited recycling of the low value plastics. When we talk about incineration or co-processing or road construction, though there are guidelines, but there is a limited usage. When we talk about the EPR-based regulatory system, we face major problems. Do we have the single registry where we have repository of all the stakeholders? What is the monitoring system of all the stakeholders? What target? The collective system will be useful, or individual system by the brand owners will be useful. Means that collections efficiency has to be improved. Then choice of financial instrument and business model. Certainly there cannot be one business model. We have seen in earlier presentation that IT platforms or different platforms provide one of the solutions where all the informal sectors stakeholders can join and they can get a prize. But the application of that is one of the major issues at a national level. I always say that when we are implementing infrastructure, when we are implementing EPR, infrastructure has to be augmented along with EPR-based intervention. If we are not going to have the final solution in terms of what could be the last mile, then how the brands will take care of the plastics? Who will take care of the plastics which are not recycled? Certainly, people, all the stakeholders will say it's not my problem, but certainly the plastics which are not recyclable has to be taken care of, and they should not go to our dump sites. Then last but not the least, there is a very intimate relationship of the behavior change. When we talk about information dissemination, there are a number of interventions by donors or developmental agencies. They all call it IECA. Certainly, they are aimed at behavior change, but unless we inculcate the behavior change in the major consumers, then we cannot have. Recently, we have published a document along with NITI Aayog on the behavior change, what could be done to change the behavior. And it was launched only last week. And we have come to conclusion that under the current circumstances, behavior change can introduce if behavior change practices are introduced, it can improve the collection efficiency drastically. So we need to have some interventions or some kind of relationship of the behavior change while providing the infrastructure, at the same time while providing the business model. Certainly economics will work. Economics will work unless we inculcate behavior change. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Amit ji. I think a very outstanding presentation. I think your messages are certainly very, very clear. Collection efficiency, no doubt, has to be improved. At the same time, actually, what you said in your concluding sentence, behavior change, which is very, very significantly important, no doubt. I would say that it is everybody's responsibility. It's not the responsibility only of the government. If I may say, government at a national level, governments also at the state and local levels, they are also trying and contributing their level best. I was very happy to note that to regulate the use of plastic, the Union Ministry of Environment has come up even with a draft plastic waste management rules 2021, right? Which proposes a ban on the manufacture, import, stocking, distribution, sale, and use of specific single-use plastic from 1st January 2022. We did have earlier on, 2016 rules, to a great extent, I would say local bodies have also been, in a way, empowered legally, to implement that. But, no local body can really take the complete responsibility. It is also people's own responsibility to a great extent. And that's where perhaps I think the behavior change has to really come up in that sense. So it's great, basically that, and we really need to see how this circular economy of the plastics, will really work. I like to now invite our next very distinguished speaker, Dr. N.B. Majumdar. Dr. Majumdar actually has spent all his life, I would say that I do not know, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of his life, focusing mainly on the waste management in this country. Dr. Majumdar was the chairperson of the committee that really took the responsibility for framing the rules for 2016. And he is presently part of the international organization, basically in Sulab International, and trying to take up several challenges in the field of waste management. I think we really look forward for, I would say that, great messages and the challenges that they are there, because as Amit said, that by 2030, we will have more than 1 kg per capita per day of the waste management handling, more than 1 kg per capita per day. So if that is so, we have to really build up our capacities so that, we are able to manage our waste. Plastic waste poses very specific, different kinds of challenges. And we like to hear from you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Good afternoon to all the distinguished panelists and participants. It's a great pleasure to be here, to be able to express my thoughts about this very important issue. Now, you see, my previous speakers have actually made my task very simple, because most of the things have been discussed. But I must, I would like to mention about what Ms. Trish Hyde mentioned that this is a big problem, but at the same time, it's a great opportunity. Now, that's a very important statement as such. Now, I have termed my presentation as, it's a question. Is it possible to optimize plastic waste management for achieving goals of circular economy? Is it possible? Next, please. Okay, now we have been hearing since morning that it has become a serious issue. It's a burning topic, but are we prepared to tackle the problem? Now, I was going through an UNCRD report, which Dr. Singh was very kind to share with me. And there is a mention that 140 million tons of plastic waste is expected to be generated in the Asia Pacific region only by the year 2030. Now, this is the report is called State of Plastic Waste in Asia and the Pacific: Issues, Challenges, and Circular Economic Opportunities, 2019. Now, this is something very fearful, 140 million tons. Now, again, Ms. Hyde was mentioning about Gazipur. Gazipur has more than 140 million tons in that huge dump, but it has been built over since 1984. Here we are talking of every year, but of course, in the Asia Pacific region only. So those in Delhi NCR can appreciate this, that this means adding one Gazipur dump site every year. And that's such a fearful, thought. The environment and health impacts of discarded plastic waste has started emerging relatively recently, from thin plastic sheet to the microplastic and the microfibers. Now the scientists, the engineers, and other technical persons, they are going deeper into it, and we now find that even the microplastic, which we have been using in our cosmetics also, microfibers, which are being used in our everyday life, we have been using them without really realizing what we are doing. But ultimately, these are coming out, and that realization is dawning upon us. A lot of research and investigation would be required to realize the full impact, and a lot more to find out effective techno-economic solutions for tackling the ever-increasing waste, that is the plastic waste. Now, in my presentations, I will be speaking mainly from the, from the practical issues. We have had beautiful presentations, illustrated, beautiful looking presentations. Mine are completely bland, without any spices. So these are just cut, bland statements. But what I have seen through my own experience, as Dr. Singh mentioned, that I have been with waste management for almost 40 years. Next slide, please.
Kindly move this slide, my dear colleagues.
Okay, so we have to now figure out pathways. What can be done? What should we do? Now, it has been mentioned already, right from our first presentation from Dr. Pardesi of NIRI. Some of these things have been discussed in some way or other. I'm just summarizing them again. Reduction of plastic waste, yes, we must do that. Collection of plastic waste, this is a very, very important issue. And this has to be tagged with, which has been already mentioned by one of the previous speakers, that sorting at source would be extremely important. And then separate collection, that would be the crux of the grip on the subject. Otherwise, if it gets mixed at the source, after that you have to do a lot more to achieve a lot less. So that is why it would be extremely important to stress upon segregation at source, be it at home, be it at office, be it at an organization, or even a factory. I'll come to that a little later as to how even in plastic industry, different kinds of plastics are getting mixed, and then it becomes a jumble of problem. Next is recycling of plastic waste. It has to be done. We just cannot let it go into our dump sites or anywhere on the streets or anywhere. And one of the most important things and a quest for future is search for alternative materials which would have minimal environmental footprint. And this is a big task. See, plastic was not invented or developed in one day. It took decades and decades. So to decimate it again would take maybe decades of very serious effort. We have to find out alternative materials. Without that, we just cannot wish out plastic. We are trying, but it would be extremely difficult. Now, immediate measures are needed on the ground, starting with the low-hanging fruits. We cannot wait for the day, maybe 3-4 decades from now, when we can hope to have some kind of an alternative which would be more user-friendly, more industry-friendly than the usual plastics which are creating all these problems. But till then, we just cannot sit still. We need immediate measures on the ground, with starting with the low-hanging fruits. All the practicable methods or systems which can be operated on the field and on commercial basis have to be started as soon as possible. We cannot just wait, because there are thoughts that we have to study, the deeper impact of certain things or certain technology. But we cannot till then, while the study is going on for, let's say, 5 to 10 years, we cannot just sit still. We have to do something. What are those things? Now, in our first presentation, Dr. Pardesi had mentioned about mechanical recycling for reuse, which is till now the most, the most prevalent kind of recycling which is happening. And she had in detail described and shown photographs of mechanical recycling. So I'm not going into that. What are the low-hanging fruits? The most low-hanging fruits, which Dr. Singh also mentioned in his opening speech: use of plastic waste for blacktop road construction. This is something which can be done immediately. I remember in the year 2006, the Central Pollution Control Board of India had come out with a guideline about use of plastic waste in road construction, specifically the blacktop road construction, because the bitumen which is used on the road, this can be easily damaged with rain or other waterlogging. If you tag on the plastic, then it becomes more hydrophobic. So the rainwater or the waterlogging impact is much less. So the road longevity or durability increases. So therefore, it would be very important to have the roads. Now, it has been estimated that about 3 tons of plastic waste can be consumed in 1 kilometer stretch of about 7-meter wide road, which is a very normal kind of road. 7-meter road is a very common kind of width, and 3 tons of plastics can be consumed in 1 kilometer of such stretch. So as Dr. Singh also mentioned, a lot of plastics can be consumed in this. And you see, if we look at the commercials, if we look at the alternatives, the commercials of the alternatives, what I have mentioned next, liquid fuel, you would require, for liquid fuel, you would require some equipment, which means you would require a certain footprint. You would require some site space. You would require some capex. You would require some opex. Then only you can operate the liquid, plastic to liquid or gaseous fuel by either pyrolysis or low temperature gasification, which are now kind of very known technologies, but they have those issues. I'm coming to that just after this. So what I was trying to mention here is, putting it on the blacktop road doesn't require you any site, any land space. You can do it right on the road itself. Nothing is required. You need only collection and then just do there. But of course, the people who are doing the road, who are laying the road, they need to be trained a little bit, not much, a little bit, so that they can incorporate the plastic into the bitumen. It can be done in two ways, as has been mentioned in the 2006 guideline of CPCB. Number one, the aggregates, let's say the stone chips, they can be coated with the molten plastic, or the plastic can be molten along with the bitumen so that they gel together, and this is put on the blacktop road. Very simple measures. Only depending on the kind of aggregates or the stone chips or whatever you are using, one has to decide as to which one of these two would be a better solution there. But you don't need an OPEX, you don't need a CAPEX. It would all be consumed or subsumed in the road construction activity. What can be better than that? We should immediately go for it. As Dr. Singh mentioned, that about 11 states have already started on this. That's a great news. Next is making of liquid fuel by pyrolysis. Now, this is a known technology, as even Dr. Singh, again, I'm quoting Dr. Singh, has mentioned that in some of the European countries like Netherlands, they have built bigger plants. Now, here is the issue. In our country, since the last almost 15 to 20 years, different experiments have been carried out. And there are plants which tackle from 25 kg to, let's say, 500 kg a day, or up to 1 ton a day. And some 500 tons are, 5 tons are being tried. I had seen one plant in Mangalore about 7-8 years back, 8-9 years back, sorry, which was for 10 tons. But unfortunately, there was some tiff with the financier and the engineering company which had set up the plant. And till the time that I had been there and seen the plant, the things were not resolved. I don't know whether the plant has been commissioned finally or not. So it can be possible. But what are the issues there? The biggest issue is, if you set up a plant, you have to have a scale of economy. So, for example, you can have a plant of 25 to 50 tons a day, which means you have to have a collection system, which means you have to have a site, a space, a capital investment, and all that waste has to be brought there. Now we have seen, we have heard from our previous speakers that they have engaged the informal sector for collecting the waste. Now, unfortunately, our our local bodies are not that plan savvy or not that efficient to be doing all this, because as per our constitution, this has been mandated on the urban local body. But anyway, so coming back to this, you have to have a certain scale. Then you have to, because you would be getting a mixed crude kind of thing, which roughly we call LDO, or we can say equivalent to LDO. But can you put it on in your vehicle? No. For putting it in an automotive system, you need to fractionate it. For fractionating it, you need more equipment and you need a greater scale. Now, who is going to organize this? This has to be organized. This is perfectly possible, but this management, this planning has to be done. Then only this third point can be made effective. Then, of course, comes the issue of taxation from the government. That would again be there. Now, that is why I have mentioned in my fourth point that proper planning and citywide project development needed for commercial application. Demand is fast peaking in cement industry also as AFR. This was mentioned by one of the speakers earlier. Now, there was a committee set up by the government of India, which I had chaired. This was about, use of RDF or SRF, that is the refuse derived fuel, in different industries. Now, we had tried in cement industry, steel industry, and the thermal power industry. Unfortunately, the steel industry and the power industry, they wiggled out saying that they were not yet ready to accept this RDF as in their own system. But the cement industry readily agreed, but with conditions. And in this report, our main aim was to standardize the RDF thing. See, we have been, I was directly onto the ground on waste management systems. I was working with after my retirement from HUDCO. For 11 years, I had worked in a private company, waste management company, and I had struggled every day with all these issues. So I know what it means. Now, therefore, when this opportunity came up, we wanted to do this standardization. And we divided the RDF into 4 categories. The combustible segregation factor, which is the SCF, the segregated combustible fraction, which is the lowest category. Then category 1, 2, 3. The cement industry said all these categories actually had different calorific values, different ash content, different chlorine, sulfate, all those things were done. The cement industry said, we are ready to pay for grade 1. We would take grade 2 also, but if you bring grade 3 or the SCF, we will not pay anything. On the other hand, if SCF is there, the party or the company or the ULB which brings that material to us, they have to pay us. Now here is a problem from both the industries. You see, cement industry is a huge industry. On the other hand, the waste management industry is a small industry. They have limited capital, very limited access to the market and so on. So therefore, this standardization is required. We need to have a closer understanding to see how the waste management industry and the cement industry can work together so that this thing can be utilized properly. Next slide, please. Now, here is another very important subject, which has been very much talked about now, right? Bioplastics and compostable plastics. This is an emerging area, and many people think that possibly there's going to be a panacea. Is it so? Possibly the time has not arrived yet. Now, bioplastics are substances derived from renewable materials. There are some confusion, so therefore I'm trying to decipher the terminology also. Now they are further classified as bio-based and biodegradable. Now bio-based bioplastics are sourced from cornstarch, that is biological material, cornstarch, hemp, banana stem, cassava, and so on. So they are not tagged to the fossil fuels. They are perfectly renewable. Now, ideally, biodegradable bioplastics can be degraded into carbon dioxide, methane, and water, the other one, second one. But actually, most of them don't degrade like that. And ultimately, they end up on a landfill or a water body. Why? I'm explaining in the next slide. Next slide, please. No, I think there was another one. Yes. Yeah, this one. Now, there are biodegradable bioplastics that can only be recycled in an industrial composting facility with specific infrastructure. You cannot put them with the MSW or municipal solid waste composting line. They won't degrade there because they need a different kind of environment, temperature, pressure, everything, so that they can be composted as such. So they are not for the municipal arena unless a large municipality sets up such kind of a industrial plant along with maybe a plastic industry partner. In the packaging sector, interest is shifting from the biodegradable plastics to bio-based plastics due to the fact that these can be recycled in the same stream as their fossil fuel-based equivalents. Okay, here what is happening is the other one, that is the biodegradable bioplastics, we keep separately. So we don't put it in in a pyrolysis plant. We think that this would be degraded in a biological manner. But in the biodegradable bioplastic, what happens is this can go with the normal commercial plastic into the the train of normal plastic recycling industry. So there is a window of recycling opportunity. Particularly, the food packaging industry delves into a complex regime of material for optimal functionality, such as airtightness, durability, etc. And right from the first presenter, we have heard about the multi-layer packaging and the problems associated with it. It just cannot be, just like that, it cannot be recycled or treated as such. Next, please. I think I have taken almost about 8 minutes. Here, I would like to delve into some of the innovative ideas for plastic recycling. This is a window into the future. This is not here on the ground, but a window into the future. Some of the countries have done something, and I'm trying to, kind of summarize some of them here. There's not all inclusive. Now, robust pavement grids, they have been made by a Polish company. The grids are made of 100% recycled material, recycled plastic, and the grids are further recyclable. That means once the grids are made, they can again be recycled into grid again after they are removed. Reportedly, the grids can withstand loads of up to 420 tons per square meter. What more do we want? So here is an opportunity. Here is a window where a good recycling opportunity has been developed in Poland. Across the globe, electrical vehicles or EVs are being talked about, including our country. But huge quantity of plastics is required to make the containers for the car batteries, a simple item. But if you can calculate the number of containers of batteries which would go into the EV industry, they are humongous. So what do we do about it? A Turkish company has started making these boxes using 50% recycled material, which are sourced from within the country. So that means you don't have to import or export. So there is a circularity, a local, regional circularity involved in this. Next one, please. Yes, another innovative idea is in Hamburg, in Germany, a waste management company and a cosmetic manufacturer have collaborated with the Technical University of Hamburg, and they are using bottles made from recycled bottles for packaging detergents. Well, they have started with detergents, not something which would be put on our face or something. But this is a big beginning because the cosmetic bottles and boxes, they are a big problem as such, once they are emptied, once they are used. So Hamburg has come out with this. The above is an example of recycling on a regional basis because even till now, they are using only from within Hamburg. So there's an example of circular economy on a regional scale. Now, we hear a lot about recycling of PET bottles, but the extent of recycled content is limited due to determination in quality, particularly thermal stability. Now, normally we hear about, we have news that PET bottles are being recycled. Fine, but we don't go into the depth of it. Is it 100% recycled? No. A certain percentage only gets into this. Otherwise, the thermal stability becomes problematic. And the light fastness also becomes a problem. Now, a company from Luxembourg has developed a dispersion agent which makes it possible to increase the recycled content and the quality doesn't deteriorate. Now, these appear to be very small things, but if we imagine the huge number of plastic PET bottles which are being involved and which are likely to be recycled, this small extent of increase in the recycled content would make a big, big impact. Next, please.
Trying to wrap up as soon as possible. Huh?
Yeah. Yes, yes. I think this one or the next, just 2 slides remaining. Now we come to the SIM cards. Now around 4.5 billion SIM cards are sold worldwide every year and increasing, which uses plastics. Now, a company in France has developed eco SIM cards where the plastic being used is recycled plastic. Now, this is a small thing again, but 4.5 billion. Another example of on-site circular economy, say during production, different types of plastic residues are generated, which I mentioned earlier also, which cannot be recycled unless they are sorted. In a plastic industry, all kinds of plastic residues are formed, which are just jumbled up. Now, a company in Denmark has developed a novel fluid mechanical sorting technology, which allows sorting of complex plastic mixtures at the production site itself. So they can be recycled by that plastic industry itself. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, I think this is the last slide. Thus, I mean, what I have been trying to say, a multi-pronged approach is required. The proven technology or systems need to be implemented fast, accompanied by proper planning and scale and management. Support of the local government or the municipality would be crucial in this. Without that, it cannot be done. At the same time, the quest for alternative materials have to be pursued with understanding and patience. They will take time, but that is the future. Otherwise, we cannot survive. It's also of paramount importance to remember that the solution may not always be financially viable, but compared to the long-term benefits for the environment and health, it would be desirable to prioritize accordingly. We shouldn't only look into the financial question only. We have to look more about the health and the environment. Thank you very much. I think that was the last thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to learn more about the innovative ways in which I would say that recycled plastic is being used. And perhaps I think these innovations, more and more innovations will really be needed to address the challenge of the plastic waste per se. And we cannot do without plastic, but at the same time, we have to manage the waste which actually is coming out of it. We are already, very late, but we have one of the most distinguished speakers left out. I deliberately kept her at the end because she has something very special to offer you and also to invite you for the forthcoming 3-hour circular economy, forum, which is happening in Moscow in another couple of months' time. So I would say that, Dr. Anupam, the floor is yours. You do not really need much introduction in this regard because you have been, for the last several years, managing these 3-hour forums and the issue of how best we can really manage our waste, irrespective of whether it is municipal waste or, plastic waste for that matter. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Kulwant Singh ji. Thank you very much. I will share my slides. Is it visible?
Yes, very much so. Yes.
Okay.
Kindly
Thank you very much, Dr. Kulwant Singh ji and other speakers. I think all of the speakers already mentioned many of the stuff regarding to plastic waste management and circular economy. So during the listening of all presentations, I fixed up few of my slides because I think it's repeat the slides. So I'm going to talk more about circular economy, that for creating the higher value of plastic waste. And I will show you a few introduction slides and then move towards the circular economy part. As we know why we are talking about plastics, because it's very popular thing for plastics, and it is like very flexible and lightweight, and one of the world greatest industrial innovation. But their production and disposal practice are really difficult to manage, and it creating adverse effect on our human health and environment. So half of all the plastic is designed as the way is used only once, and then we can throw it away, which is really difficult to manage and to understand how we can separate it and how we can do it in the circular economy part. And if we see the production part, which already previous speakers mentioned that we are increasing more of the plastics in coming generations. So in that projected part, we can see if it is the the global production is around 2 million to 380 million ton from 1950s to 2005. But it's going to be double by 2035 and quadruple by 2050, which is the most dangerous part for us if we cannot manage or control our plastics. And when we thought the generation, you can see the most of the rivers, our plastics is going in the rivers area because of the not proper disposal management in the land-based activities. So 8 of the rivers is from Asian rivers out of the 10 in most polluting rivers. For example, like the list of the rivers which I'm showing here, you can see the one river is our steered river from Danda, and China also have 2-3 rivers. They are generating the waste into plastic. So around 90% of all river-borne plastic that end up in the oceans, that comes from these from 10 rivers in Asian regions. And because of that oceans coming waste all the oceans, they are creating the trash islands in some of the countries, like in Thailand, in Maldives, they have a trash island because they have no proper disposal factor. So closer to the coastal island country around the world, their plastic is more often washed by the tides onto the shores. And in some part of the world's amount of this trash collected by the water and become large amount that comes to the new island or the trash islands, we can say, because of that waste. And every single day, millions of pieces of plastics have find their ways into the oceans. And incoming over 8 million tons of plastics are found in the way, and it estimated that it more plastics than the fishes by 2050, which is really a serious problem. We have to manage it. So why plastic is so incredible and ambitious material? Because it's derived from the material found in the nature, such as natural gas, oil, or coal, or plants. And its very complexity of the plastic in chemistry part is many polymers is used. So I'm not going to detail in that part because previous speakers already mentioned about that part. So I'm just going to show about the four types of plastics, like microplastic, mesoplastics, micro, and mini microplastics. These are based on these mini microplastics are the size classes continuously below than the nanoplastics. And it's we can say this waste kills marine life and also breaks down into microplastics and mini microplastics that come their way into the seafood and eaten also by the human beings. So plastics are also found in the human feces as well. And this plastic is whether coming in ocean or river or land, but can persist in the environment for centuries. because we are using single-use plastics is everywhere. And in this right side photo, I'm just going to show how many years one bag of the plastic is, how many decades is still in our environment, around 400 years. One drinking straw, which we are used for the coffee, cold coffee, it's around 200 years. So this single-use plastics we are using every day, like toothbrush, we are using every day, 3 times a day. So it's around 500 years it's available in our environment. So it's not easy to decompose the plastics, because most of the 99% of plastics are produced from chemicals. And it's all are which are really dirty and non-renewable resources. So basically plastics outlive us and will outlive us, our next generation. So this really serious point, but the good news is that it's in our hand as a consumer to manage it by reducing or by these circular economy methods. And there's significant loss is going on the plastics. Here I'm just showing you a few pictures from the news or newspapers. They are saying the plastic waste causes are financially damaged to billions, $13 billion around to marine ecosystem. And it also increased the loss of to fish industry and tourism industry. But whereas only 9% of plastic waste are produced for the recycling, about 12% around goes to the incineration, whereas 79% is going to the landfill area or dump as such in the environment. So there are many negative impacts of the plastics. And if we go only with the take, make, or use or dispose method like linear approach, so we are facing major driver of the natural resource depletion, waste and environment degradation, even effect on climate change and adverse human health effects. So in this way, we have to think by if we are saving more fishes than more plastics than the fishes by using this linear approach. So we have to move towards the circular economy. So next, I'm just showing here the linear approach, which how it looked like, the take, make, compose, dispose, and pollute. Whereas in circular economy, we can redesign the product. We can also repair that product. So basically the approach of circular economy is concept for industries and business to scale up to the create values from the by reintroducing them into the production cycle or the consumption cycles. So circular economy is basically has strong premises for reducing pressure on environment and enhanced security for raw material, because we don't need to use more raw material, definitely with the innovative technologies. So the concept of circular economy is divided here in 3 steps: production, consumption, and distribution. In production, we can see is the redesign and reduce and rethink the product. Whereas in consumption side, we have recovery, energy, recycle, reduce, and reuse. And it also collaborate with the society and in our new lifestyle system. And the next is distribution. In distribution step, we have used the remanufacture, repair, and redistribution by using the new business models. And according to the World Economic Forum, they are saying that circular economy, which promotes to eliminate the waste and continue safe use of the natural resources, offers the alternative ways to yield up around $4.5 trillion in economic benefit by 2030. So this circular economy is also, like Dr. Amit Jain also mentioned about Ellen MacArthur. They clearly wrote that circular economy is one of the biggest opportunity for managing all types of waste. And here I'm showing about the opportunities of circular economy. The circle is definitely present SDGs, And SDGs, how relate with circular economy, because it helps to, in the 5 steps I'm showing here. The first one is generate increased wealth by producing the green products and less toxic products, and reduce the source dependency by extending the lifetime through better service or recycling the products. And definitely it's end of life of the product, and minimize the waste by separate of the waste, because segregation is most important step for the circular economy also. And the last one, it reduced the environmental footprints by using the cleaner production and have the less resource use. So with these 5 steps, we can see it makes better finite resources, reduce emission, protect our human health and biodiversity, and also boost economy and create many more jobs. So basically it benefits from the beginning of the material or until the waste. I should not say here waste, or we can say as a resource. And the next is driven by the economic interest, which is complementing governmental intervention as well, because it's not only the private sector activity, it's not possible to do it without the involvement of the government part. And what's the barrier basically in plastic waste with the circular economy? Because we are using the linear approach from the beginning. So being locked into the linear production, it makes costly to move towards a circular economy. And difficulties to business cooperation definitely by the PPP, public-private partnerships, in respect of the cost and infrastructure. And the third point is inadvertent knowledge and capacity for the implementation, because there are in few places they have the very few limitations in the legislation part. So overcoming these barriers will require significant policy and regulatory support to foster the innovation and increase the competitiveness of the circular economy model, which definitely create a demand pull for the circular plastic product. And what's the solutions if we are moving towards a circular economy? The best is improve the economic viability of recycling and reuse of the plastics. And it definitely halt the leakage of the plastic into the environment, like which goes in our oceans. And the third part is decouple the plastic production from fossil fuels feedstock while embracing in the renewable feedstocks. And here, these 3 solutions is overview solutions. And the next I'm going to show some examples of the solution. And previous speakers already mentioned about few of the solutions. So one is the alternative feedbacks, because plastics, the producing plastics from alternative feedbacks, including the bio-based resources such as sugarcane, oil or cellulose, as well as from the greenhouse gas or sewage sludge, are naturally occurring the biopolymers. So that is one of the solutions. Next, plastic waste as a resource, which already mentioned by the roads built by the plastics. And the third is redesign and innovation of plastics by refilling of plastic containers, because we have to redesign the plastic products to enhance the longevity and reusability and recyclability by waste prevention. So we can redesign the product and again we can use it. And the next one is sustainable business models, which is the urban industrial symbiosis, like waste from the one industry's waste can be the input for the another industry, which is industrial symbiosis. Like in Japan, we have the eco-towns, we have an industrial symbiosis in eco-towns. And the next one is robust platform, which is we have to use new innovation technologies by the including IoT or in the frontier technologies, artificial intelligence. We can help with these, with the help of these technologies, we can meet the solutions for the waste, plastic waste. And the last and important one is the policy and legislation instruments, such as ban on the single-use plastic, which is not only the best solution, because it's one of the solutions, but it's definitely difficult to ban it. And it's better if we can reduce the use of the plastics. So with these solutions, we can help to move towards the SDG 14, because circular economy will contribute to achieve SDG 14 on the use of ocean, seas, or marine resources, and target to prevent marine pollution from the land-based activities. So including marine debris. So which of the plastics made up between 60 to 80% of plastic which is putting in the oceans. So here I'm just showing the what is 14 goal, SDG 14, and what exactly we need in the blue line, and mainly showing about the prevention of the marine pollution, including marine debris. So by 2050, they are saying that prevent and significantly reduce marine pollution, mainly by the plastic wastes. Here in our last 9th forum, we introduced the Bangkok 3R Declaration towards prevention of plastic waste pollution through 3R and circular economy. This declaration has mainly 3 steps I'm putting here. The first step is develop effective 3R policies and programs, and implement of 3R policies and programs integrate with circular economy. And the most important part is promote multi-layer cooperation. So these 3 steps are involved in this declaration, and participating countries adopted this declaration. And our next activity, we have recently launched a book, which Dr. Amit Jain already mentioned, and Kiran Singhji and Dr. Majumdar already mentioned about this report. And this report is based on the state of plastic waste in Asia and the Pacific, issues, challenges, and circular economic opportunities. So this report is basically divided into the 4 steps with the concept of the driving DPSIR, that is driving force, pressure, state, impact, and response, and shows the material cycle of plastics and state of plastics and definite impact, responding to the responses for the plastic waste. So these 2 activities is the more related in our UNCRD activities with regard to the plastic waste. I prepared few way forward possible actions to reduce the plastic waste. The first important actions by the government. We have the effective framework to promote 3R activities, improve national and international cooperation. So in 3R activities, I make more highlight on the reduce activity part. And the second is by the industries, which can innovate to facilitate the recycling and also promote the PPP, that is public-private partnerships. And the third one is for us, for citizens, for academia part. That is, we need to understand the scientific knowledge of this serious issue and changing of lifestyle for the including the action of 3R, which is recognized as well plus. So this is very important for citizens to understand and to contribute positively to control this issue. So this is about my presentation. So as Dr. Kiran Singhji already mentioned about the new event. So we are organizing the next event, next forum in March, 22 to 24th March. So I really welcome to you all for the upcoming event of the 11th Regional 3R and Circular Economy Forum in Asian Pacific. So we are planning it hybrid. So please join this event. And this today's webinar, we are considering as a pre-event of this forum. And thank you very much. So please contact me on this email so we will continue about the forum. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anupam, I think, for an excellent presentation, particularly on the circular economy. I actually recall that in 1984, there was a UNEDO conference in Vienna, and we were preparing a national report in India. I was responsible directly, as part of the team which was preparing it. And one of the agenda was, how do you promote the use of plastics? One of the key agenda was, how do we really promote the use of plastics? And automotive industry was arguing mainly because it will increase, I would say that efficiency of the automotive industry itself in a very big way, because the weight of the car itself will come down if you use several parts of that. So I'm just saying, 50 years from then, what we are seeing is the same plastic, which as a matter of fact we were promoting, we are today having the challenge of managing its waste. But at the same time, it has come to stay as one of the most important material. We only have to learn how do we really manage it. I mean, that is the main challenge. I think all the speakers that, as a matter of fact, made the presentations today had a lot of lessons for us to learn. I would not like to say that, situation actually, whether you mentioned very clearly, Anupam, that single-use plastics need not really be banned, but if we know how best we can really manage it, because they are very handy, useful as a packaging material, or even for several food items where we are using them. So in that sense, I would say there are, of course, I will not go into, we are already much behind schedule. I'll not go into the questions and answers, but I will certainly be preparing a report which I will be circulating to all the participants and all the distinguished speakers and sharing with all of you. Most of the presentations will also become available because I would say my partner organization, All India Institute of Local Self-Government, they have well recorded the presentations. All that will become available, and it will also be available, I understand, also on the Facebook and other media also. So we will be sharing the link with you, and my very personal thanks, I would say, to each one of the presenters, each one of the panelists, for that matter. Excellent, outstanding presentation, very difficult to say. It probably makes it 7 presentations, 7 chapters, a nice, another book on the subject. So perhaps I think we really look forward for the next, event, which as a matter of fact, UNCRD is organizing. You will soon hear from them. I think, I'm sure that all of you will get an invite for this event. It is hybrid, but I can only tell you that each event I have attended, I have learned a lot. And so was today for me, a lot of learning from all my dear colleagues, friends, and perhaps I think, we will be in touch with that. With those words, I would like to close the event. Thank you very much. I did have some questions in my mind, but I don't think there is time enough because we are much behind schedule now. And you will have, I would say, more in the report that I will be circulating, in a couple of days. Thank you so much indeed. My heartfelt thanks to you. Yeah,
Thank you.
very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you, Hitesh, for all the partnerships. Actually, you have been lending us full support in this regard. And perhaps I think All India Institute of Local Self-Government is one of the oldest institutions in the country. It was established in 1926, and they have 50 branches in the country with their headquarters in Mumbai, and they have been playing a very vital role through their magazine, which is called Urban Update, and they bring it out every month and circulate it very widely. The story of this webinar will also be printed in the, Urban Update. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it a lot.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.